Hi, I'm Michael Wargo, team pilot for Precision Aerobatics, and today we're going to talk about CG. I'm going to give you a bunch of different reasons why you need to understand CG and how it affects the flight characteristics of your plane. I'm going to fly my addiction a little bit this morning. I've adjusted the CG a little forward. And when I say a little forward, I mean a little forward. Far forward is definitely never much of a good idea. But when I adjust the CG forward, this plane will do a few things a little different. It will tumble a little better, knife edge spins and any other types of tumbling like that. It desensitizes the elevator and rudder a bit as well. And you'll see some of the straight line flying is just a little bit better. It's always very good. I never fly very far off the CG because I think there's a lot of disadvantages we'll talk about later. But anyway, I'm going to take it up and we'll see this flying with a little bit for CG. Just a pop top, something that the addiction never likes because it's not that heavy a plane. Hold on. Anyway, well, first thing, obviously, I have to trim it a little bit for the bit more for CG. But this is definitely what I like the most about it. I'm on high rates. Watch how pretty the straight lines get. Just straight as an arrow.
Flight mode 4.
Change the rate a little bit. This little outside knife edge flip thing is a little better with the nose heavy, and it really tracks nice and straight on knife edge. The effect here is really interesting. It keeps the rolling Harriers kind of a little more level without the nose so high, but coming in for this landing, instead of the plane ballooning, the airframe stayed fairly level. And of course, on all the straight line stuff, it really benefits. Wow. So a few things it'll do a little better, and this is a little, that snap flip. You see how nice and tight it was, and also how quickly it stopped. If it's a little tail heavy, it does that a little bit differently. If you'll notice, it really does the flippy part of it really fast, and it'll stop pretty quick. I think everything relating to a straight line is much better with the CG just a little forward.
Time remaining 4 minutes.
When we're doing things like a rolling Harrier and so on, this really kind of helps its stability a little bit. I don't want to say they're easier to do, but I think it kind of slows the ailerons down a little bit. And instead of changing your rate, sometimes just adjusting the CG a little forward helps. On knife edge, of course, this is the Addiction X, but if you're flying a little faster, it really helps the knife edge track well. Again, it desensitizes the rudder just a little bit, and it tends to want to hold the lines a little bit nicer. I'm going to show you a tumble with the CG a bit more forward. Little knife edge spin. See how much nicer and faster it is? A lot of people consider hovering, the place where you definitely need to have an aft CG, and it is just not true. Harriers tend to look a little better with the slightly aft CG. You can get rid of wing rock with an aft CG. But as you'll be able to see right now, hovering is just fine. This is with a, with a nose-heavy aircraft. Everything's, once the stage is fine. It's again, with tumbling a little bit nose-heavy makes it just come over a little quicker, a little nicer.
1 minute.
the reason a lot of people want that aft CG is because they feel that the makes the tail hang a little bit. And although there's a little bit of truth in that, it really only benefits when it's dead hanging like this. Other than that, it just doesn't really help that much. Okay, this is another little experiment on CG. I'm going to fly this Electric Shock V2, and I'm going to fly it with a very aft CG. This is about as far aft as I would ever try to fly it. And we're just going to see how it performs. As a coincidence, Sean wanted me to do some experimenting with aft CG just to see what its performance differences are. So we're going to take it up and I'll show you what a really aft CG does, and I'll try and describe what I'm feeling as it's happening. Okay. We're going to see how this CG does with harriering. With this very aft CG, what's going to happen is things are going to be a lot more sensitive. It will be a little less likely to have wing rock. I have a wind that's throwing it over a little bit, so it's a little windier than I would like it to be for this experiment. But now watch when I go up into a hover. You just can watch the behavior of the aircraft. It's definitely wanting to hang a little better like that. But it definitely feels a lot more sensitive, and I know that I probably wouldn't want to fly it this way. But it's really, this particular plane isn't doing too badly. I think it's hovering actually pretty well. Now we're going to try a little bit of knife edge and see how it does. It's kind of making the rolling harriers a little weird, but I think I can probably dial it in so it does a little better. I'm using a really light battery, and I added some weight to the tail to get this really aft CG. But as I suspected, the tail is hypersensitive. Okay, if I fly this aircraft straight and level, just like this, it's going to tend to want to balloon a little bit. So I'm obviously, I have to, when I add power, I've got to, I'm going to have to give some down elevator for sure. But the things that's going to hurt the most is going to be the straight line flying. It's just going to be a little extra sensitive, pitch sensitive. It's going to be much harder to fly smooth and straight. Okay, another big thing about CG. My friend David here is going to let me fly his jet today. And a lot of people are really, especially with even turbines and things like that, they're always trying to make sure that that jet is nose heavy, because for some reason they're very afraid of tail heavy. Of course, we don't ever want something really tail heavy, but if I had $1 for every time somebody gave me a plane to test fly and it was nose heavy, I would be a very rich man. The fact is, the plane needs to be balanced well. Now, one of the big reasons that you want it to be balanced, and sometimes depending on the jet, I've had jets that I've actually purchased that people said, you know, you got to be careful, it lands super, super fast. Well, one of the reasons it landed super fast is these airframes are very slippery, very sleek. If it's nose heavy and it doesn't want to settle in at all this way, it will just keep flying, and it'll keep flying fast. I mean, it just won't lose speed. The flaps help, but it doesn't terminate the speed like it should. Have you ever watched an F-16 come in where it settles in? It's such a high alpha and so on and so forth. If your plane is coming in too straight, too level, and it's hard to slow down, moving back the CG will do a lot for your model, because as the plane gets slower, and your surfaces get a little less effective, the plane will start to get that nose high attitude by itself a little bit if it's just a little aft. So if you just bring it back a little bit, you can really make a plane that doesn't like to land well, you'll make it land pretty well. I was assured by David that this thing is very well balanced and so on and so forth. And if it's balanced really well, I should be able to, again, get that nose up a little bit on landing and land it on the back wheels. I mean, that's kind of the plan. I've never flown it, so we'll see what happens.
Timer start. Gear up.
All right, we're going to drop the gear.
Gear down.
Now give me full flaps.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Landing flaps.
Now you see how low I am?
20
Now watch
seconds.
this plane as it kind of settles in. Dude. I'm going to put this in flat spin, and you'll see a nice balanced CG should keep this model pretty, pretty flat through the flat spin. Beautiful, look at that. And as you'll notice, with this, with the flip turn like this,
Minus 2 minutes.
A nice balanced CG keeps the plane balanced throughout. We're flying it now without a gyro, so all of the, how it came out so nice and flat, wings level and everything like that is I think in a big part due to a nice balanced aircraft. Now I'm at the nice height. I'll bring him in. Nose up. Hold it, hold it, hold it.
Minus 3 minutes.
I want to tell everybody that this aircraft, I fly this a little bit tail heavy, and I'll tell you why. I like to do low knife edge passes. Okay? I like to fly this thing in a configuration where I'm flying a lot slower. And when I'm flying a jet slow, there's very small surfaces. If you look at the elevator back here, there's not a ton of it. And same thing with the rudder. If I am flying knife edge, that rudder has pretty fair authority, but if I was nose heavy at all, it just wouldn't stay as high alpha as I need. So I'm flying this aircraft a bit more tail heavy. I believe it makes it a bit easier to land as well. Most people, like I said before, just want to get their jets. They say nose heavy, nose heavy, nose heavy. And besides that nice high alpha that you get with it on landing, it's also a lot easier for the aircraft to rotate and take off. If you're nose heavy, between the degradation in the effectiveness of the elevator and the flaps, all that weight on the nose makes it a lot harder for the aircraft to rotate. And on grass, and if this jet was smaller, sometimes you'll end up running right off the runway, which I've seen 100 times. Anyway. And right here you're going to see a bit of a benefit to a bit aft CG, because I'm going to roll it inverted on takeoff. Now here is that knife edge pass I talked about, and you see how nice and high the nose is and how pretty it stays straight. That was all because of the bit more aft CG giving me more control. Here's the same with the inverted pass, just a bit more control, and it sets in a really nice position for that pass. And this nose high landing is the same thing. It's partially due to the good CG. These are all pretty self-explanatory. It just kind of explains a bit about CG. This one is kind of important though because it suggests that if you're flying with a forward CG, it requires a bit higher angle of attack, meaning that your plane needs to fly at a different angle of attack to get the same lift. These diagrams are for full-scale aircraft, but the plane will fly faster with an aft CG, which is a bit counterintuitive, I would think, for most of us flying RC. You really need to take a look at this. It's very interesting, saying that the plane actually requires more lift, which means it will stall a little bit easier if it is nose heavy. Again, this applies to full-scale aircraft, but you should definitely stop the film and read this.